Hi everyone. In my last live stream there was some interest in the Nikon D750 and I think to a greater extent let's talk about the full frame cameras versus our micro four thirds cameras, because I know a lot of you you started with the micro four thirds system and you might be thinking am I missing anything with the full frame cameras, because there's been a lot of great cameras coming out. The Nikon Z6 and Z7s, the Canons, they have their EOS Rs, Panasonic, with their S series. So there's a lot of cameras out there now that are full frame and getting a lot of hype. And I wanted to kind of temper that excitement about full frame cameras a little bit and tell you my story about why I basically switched over to micro four thirds. Because prior to the M10 Mark II, I was shooting with the Nikon D-750 right here. And this is a very well-regarded camera, particularly among wedding photographers, landscape photographers, but photographers in general that shoot full frame. They love the D750 for its low light capability and the image quality that it cranks out. And no question, the images that come out of that camera are magic. I loved shooting with that camera. But that said, I went to the camera store just looking for something smaller and lighter, which is, I think, the same reason a lot of people switched over from, the bulkier, heavier, full-frame cameras, is they just want something smaller and lighter. But I never thought it would totally replace my Nikon D750. It's just it's been, like I said, 3.5 years, and this D750 has just been sitting in its bag forever. So I wanted to take it out again and shoot it side by side with the M10 Mark II and refresh my memory about what made me switch. What was it about the micro four thirds system that I didn't, feel like I needed to take the D750 out anymore, because I don't want to sacrifice image quality just for the sake of convenience. And for me, in my everyday shooting, my photo walks and travel vacations, etc., I really didn't see any difference when shooting with the M10 Mark II versus the Nikon D750. But like I said, that was 3.5 years ago. So I said, let's take these two cameras out again, but this time side by side, because I've never really done that before that I can recall. All right, so here's my catalog, and let me just go over to everything I did in 2019. I'll just click here and just take a look at, and I'll close this now that I shot 33,000 images in 2019. It's a little misleading with the pro capture and bracketing and time lapses that I do. It's really not 33,000 pictures. It's probably closer to a lot. But you can see the M1 Mark II has the most number of counts, and again, that's mostly for time lapse and pro capture stuff. So it's probably in real life about half that. But here's the M10 Mark II. I shot a lot with this camera. My PEN PL8, which I use mostly for the tutorials and vlogging. And then a couple hundred pictures from my Fuji cameras. These are really old. The F10, the MX-2700. But here's my Nikon D750, and you can see there's only 72 images, and half of those, it's really half that because it's half RAW, half JPEG. And I just took a few pictures of the backyard, just a couple of test shots before I head out. I'm also going to show you the Nikon Z7 images, because a friend of mine, he has the Z7, and we went out for a little photo walk together. So I'll do a comparison between the Z7 and that day I took out my PEN F. And then also, let's see, there's the PEN F, and this is my camera of choice that I take out when I want to just shoot for my photo walks and family and things like that. I just love the PEN F. And then miscellaneous stuff here. Here's the TG5. Again, the bulk of the TG5 stuff I think was like time-lapse photography. There's a couple thousand shots there. But I do take the TG5 out quite a bit for photo walks and you know, just for fun. It's a fun little camera to have with you, as you can see. But let's get right to the comparison between the EM10 Mark II and the Z7 or D750. So these are the D750 images on my photo walk that I did the other day. So let's go into this library. Yeah, October 4th. And let's select both cameras. So you can see I took 72 raw images altogether between the two cameras. And I wanted to show you first, I'll just skim through it. This photo walk was really a total fail. I vlogged and everything, but I didn't get any good shots. So I decided not to post a vlog on that photo walk. But I thought it would be a good comparison between the D750 and the EM10 Mark II. So let's just take this image here. Let's just pick the raw files. And I want to show you this Mustang because I really like this Mustang. This is the M10 Mark II image, and here's the Nikon. Now, just for quick reference, I highlighted all the EM10 Mark II images yellow and the Nikon's in red. And I'm going to reset both of these images. The Nikon is already at all 0, like you can see here. Let me reset the EM10 Mark II to all 0. So we have the EM10 Mark II on the left and the D750 on the right. And on the face, I mean, you can see the aspect ratio is obviously different because one's a 4:6, one's a 4:3. You can see the resolution and the lenses that I use. So all of the EXIF data is here. This is a straight out of camera raw image. And right away you can also see that the Nikon generally likes to crank out a little warmer image. And that's easily corrected just via a white balance, which we'll do. But let's just punch in and look at some detail. And I'll line these up so that they're a little bit more comparable. But look at the difference here. Is there really that much difference between the EM10 Mark II and that D750? I'd almost argue the EM10 Mark II looks a little sharper to me here, despite being a 16 megapixel camera versus the 24 megapixel. But let's go ahead and move over. Yeah, I mean, there's virtually no grain in either image. And looking down here, detail is fine. And then going out, even the depth of field, right? This is another thing that full frame users or people interested in full frame will look for, is how shallow is that depth of field. And I have both these lenses. I have equivalent lenses, a 17 millimeter on the EM10 Mark II versus the 35 millimeter f2 on my Nikon. And that 35 millimeter f2 is one of the sharpest lenses for Nikon. Not wide open, but that's true for the 17 millimeter, right? So I have both these lenses wide open, the 17 at f1.8 and the 35 at f2. But just look at the truck back here in this parked car. Is there really that much difference in depth of field, wide open? Not really. Not really, in my opinion. And this is what I saw when I bought the EM10 Mark II 3.5 years ago. I was like, why am I lugging around this giant D750? And that's a small full frame SLR, right? DSLR. That was, I think, one of the smallest ones Nikon made. It was sort of their entry level DSLR. It wasn't a D810, which is much bigger. And if you want to go, you know, full on grip and everything, yeah, there's no comparison. As is, straight out of the box, this D750 weighs twice as much, a little more than twice as much as that EM10 Mark II, or just under twice as much. But Yeah, you guys, you're not missing anything with full frame. Look at this. There's really not that much difference in just real life. Now, that's just the straight out of camera raw. Let's do a little bit of editing and see how much push-pull or how much noise comes into the image when we actually want to recover some of the shadows or maybe bring some of the highlights back. And the first thing I'll do is just a white balance, all right? So I'm going to take my little eyedropper, and right here in this horse, what I'm going to do, and I want you to look at the values that pop up here if you can see them. I'm looking for a spot in this white horse where all three values are equal or very close to equal. And I think, all right, that's pretty close. 37, 37, 42.3. Let's pick that. And you can see the image warmed up a little bit. Now let's go over to the Nikon image and do the same thing. I'm normally not this precise, but I want to really try to do the best I can. All right, that's pretty close right there. All right, so just doing a white balance change, let's compare these images again. And now you can see they're much, much closer, right? Just in terms of white balance. Now, if I wanted to bring up the shadows in the grill here a little bit and maybe bring the highlights down a little bit in the back, first, let me just click auto. That's usually what I like to do with color images. It gives me a good head start. And that looks pretty good, but I'll just tweak the highlights a little more and bring the shadows up. No, the shadows right about there is good. And then we'll bring the blacks down just a tiny bit. Let me just set it to the same aspect ratio as the Nikon, like so. All right, and that's all I would do there. Let's go over to the Nikon and click auto and bring the highlights all the way down. Oh, that's a bit too much. Right about there maybe. And I'll bring the shadows up a tad. So there, now I've edited these pictures separately. And let me look at these now. And I have to do a double take and ask myself, which one was the M10 Mark II? Thankfully, it's right up here, now that I've made the aspect ratio the same. But let's go ahead and punch in on the shadows and see if there's any noise. In the bright areas, there's no noise, okay? But the noise usually starts to creep up right here in the shadow areas of the grill. And let me realign these a tiny bit. There. And there's really not much difference, right? Look at that. How about in the hood? There is a tiny bit of color noise here, starting to creep in now that I've adjusted the shadows. So again, this is where full frame has an advantage, is in low light. If you're trying to pull up shadows, and clearly it's going to have to, because it's 24 megapixels over a full frame. But really, if I wanted to fix the noise on the EM10 Mark II, it'd be so easy to do, but I'm not going to just yet. But I just wanted to show you, there's really not that much difference, especially when you back off. It's like, I wouldn't know which picture was taken with which, especially if I print these out. I'm not going to be able to tell any difference. And that's why after I bought the M10 Mark II, I was like, oh my God, I don't know why I'm bringing that D750. And a month later, I bought the camera I really wanted, the PEN F. Because when I bought the M10 Mark II, I got it on sale for like $600 with a couple lenses. Whatever it was. I didn't want to spend $1,100 on a PEN F for a camera system I wasn't familiar with. But after about a month of shooting with the M10 Mark II, I didn't hesitate at all to go out and buy the camera I really wanted, the PEN F, because I had a very high level of confidence that Micro Four Thirds image quality is just fine for everyday photography. All right, so let's do one more comparison, a more modern Nikon camera versus the PEN F, the Nikon Z7. So let me go back out to 2019. And I'm going to pick the Nikon Z7. And let's go to this folder. And this was the day that I went on a photo walk with my buddy. And let's just pick the raw images. And I need to find two that are pretty similar. Okay, here's two that are very similar. And I'm going to reset these to all 0. And let's compare these two. And the image on the left is the Nikon Z7. That's a 42 something megapixel camera. The image on the right is the Olympus PEN F, which is a 20 megapixel micro four thirds camera. And I was shooting with the 45 millimeter f1.8, and he was using his 24 to 70 f4. Let's see what he was shooting at. He was shooting at 60 millimeter f11, and I was shooting at 45 millimeter f2. So I was shooting a lot more wide open, hence that's why I have a little bit blurrier foreground. And I think what we did is we both focused on the little paddle boat here. But let's go ahead and punch in and take a look. Let me line these up a little bit. Like so. But yeah, take a look at these two images here. I mean, again, the white balance, just ignore that for now. But look at the image here. It's hard to see. Now, obviously, the Nikon is resolving a little bit more detail. Like, let's look at this tent here. Let me line these up a little bit. This image on the left has twice as many megapixels as the image on the right from my PEN F. Is there really that much difference, even at those extreme, you know, megapixel counts? I just don't see it myself. And I know YouTube, you're going to lose a little bit of the resolution as opposed to what I'm seeing with my naked eye, but trust me, even with my naked eye, when I'm looking at the foliage here and the lines in the tent, I'm not seeing that much difference. Let's pick this tree. Look at this tree and this fence line and the people standing. I wonder if I can punch in maybe 3 to 1. Okay, now we're at 3 to 1. This is the same fence as this fence. Is there that much difference? Let's pick the same focus point. I was focusing on the canoe, so is he, I believe. Look at the canoe. Can you really see much difference between the two? Not really. So don't buy into the hype of, you know, you need to go full frame to get professional quality results, because there are plenty of people out there using their micro four thirds cameras professionally and not having any problems at all, including myself. And the EM10 Mark II is one of the finest cameras Olympus has ever made and the best value on the camera market today, in my opinion.